Gears 5 is several things. It is chaos. It is exploration. It is emotion. It is certainly a worthy successor, and it just may be the very best Xbox game ever created. Let's get into it. So for those who are concerned about spoilers, this is a spoiler-free review. Fear not, I've got you covered. Also, if you happen to like the review, maybe hit that like button, it really helps. Share this with a buddy, and of course subscribe for more. First up, let's get into the visuals. Gears 5 is ahead of the pack in many ways. Frame rate is definitely one of them. Gears 5 runs at 60 FPS on the Xbox One X, and it is ultra fluid, ultra smooth, and as a result you see twice the animations on screen. From walking animations to explosions, everything is just that much better at double the frame rate. Add to that several visual benefits not possible on the base Xbox One, and you have one of the best looking games of all time here. Now true, Coalition could have doubled the fidelity on offer here on Xbox One X and opted for a 30 FPS frame rate while adding perhaps more graphical benefits, but at the end of the day, even they knew that frame rate is very important. That's why they opted for this one and only available mode on the Xbox One X. And those frames are generally locked. Most all of the time you do have a very solid frame rate, but I have noticed one or two areas where there are some considerable dips. Now oddly enough, when I went back to those same areas at a later date, those dips did not happen. It could be that they were patched out before the game even releases. Be sure and let me know if you experience this down below. Generally though, you are looking at a very consistent frame rate. HDR is absolutely top notch as well, and it only serves to highlight the fantastic lighting in the game. Add to that amazing texture quality, very high levels of detail in the world itself. I'm talking debris, destruction, all kinds of things and items scattered everywhere. The destruction in the game is actually quite good considering it's running on a console at 60 FPS. Given the amount of headroom there, I'm very pleased with what I'm seeing. They're doing some really cool new techniques with shadows, and they've got a new GPU accelerated tessellation system. Yes, they've actually offloaded this from the CPU to the GPU to ensure that that frame rate is as consistent as possible. Tessellation is used to create depth in both the snow and the sand, and as you see here, it is quite effective. I'll sum it up by saying once again, this is one of the best looking games I've ever seen on any platform, and the fact that it's running at double the frame rate of most of those other best looking games is absolutely insane. Keep in mind, this has open world hub areas, and in those areas it is pretty much locked most all of the time. No real hitching as of this review. It runs butter smooth. A serious technical accomplishment by the Coalition. Comment down below, let me know if you are watching this in 4K resolution. I have captured and rendered it at that resolution for a reason. It is the only way to enjoy this game at its maximum fidelity. Now when it comes to the narrative, the Coalition themselves have already teased that Kate is struggling with some things that happened in the last game. And if you completed Gears of War 4, you know that there are some definite struggles ahead. Just know that this game deals very much with not only that struggle inside of Kate's head, but the very history of Gears of War as well. There are things that you learn in Gears 5 that fans have had no clue about up until this point. Very important things. Things I wish I could talk about, but of course I won't. Just know that there are major things in the story of this game. Decisions are made by the player in Gears 5 that literally change the course of where the franchise will go. It's not too often you can say that about any game. Decade-old questions in the franchise are answered, and they are answered very well. I feel like this was the plan all along. It's so well written and so well melded with the past games that this stuff actually makes sense. Nothing seems forced. The different maps of the campaign really help the pacing of the game. The game just has good pacing in my opinion, and some gameplay possibilities are only possible on one or the other map. For instance, on the winter map, you can shoot the ice from underneath enemies to dispatch them that way. I'll let you guys experience it for yourselves, but I really enjoyed the story from Gears 5. Just another quick note, I've never seen so much gore in a Gears of War game. There was a lot of concern about what this game would be. Would it be dialed back or pushed forward? And the answer is pushed forward. So much so that they've designed a new system to make blood stick to your armor and clothes, and you'll notice this often after combat or a close call. It looks spectacular. Just know that Gears is here, the executions are as bloody as ever, and there are plenty of them. Now, of course, those executions are only possible through the combat of Gears, and that combat feels better than ever in my opinion. Everything from the aiming to the movement to the melee system, everything is better. In fact, every gun in the game has its own learnable recoil pattern, and the new melee mechanic is a welcome change. You now have a knife as your default weapon. You can, of course, augment this with heavy weapons like the club and pipe. Put simply, the combat feels great, and the gore is still there, along with a few new weapons. Now, during your progression throughout that story, you will be traversing different maps. As you've seen here, one snow, one desert, some other things that I'll not get into. And on these maps are both points of interest, being question marks that you can go to and explore. Many times these points of interest will offer you some kind of reward, some kind of upgrade. You may get into some kind of firefight along with some kind of mini-boss encounter, but others may be a bit different. None of them are full-on side quests, they are more side objectives. Points of interest. They are definitely worth doing, for they do house many of the robots' upgrades. Not only can you upgrade Dave with all kinds of different attacks and enhancements for yourself, but he can actually also pick up guns and ammo, other things in the world that you can't reach yourself. You'll find he's also quite good at hacking terminals and opening doors as well. Note that you can actually play as the robot if you desire. The game is technically 3-player co-op, with the first 2 players being Del, Kate, or any combination of whatever characters are available, and the robot. And again, Dave has a ton of upgrades and abilities, different buffs for the squad. Very helpful, especially on harder difficulties. He seems to be a very integral part of the game. They really want you to upgrade this guy, explore, find those upgrades, get those resources to actually make him more powerful. If you're wondering if he's some kind of gimmick, I would say no, he's actually quite enjoyable to use. He does some pretty cool stuff, and he has some pretty funny moments in the campaign as well. Now, we've talked about traversing the map, but what about the skiff itself, the thing you traverse the map on? Well, this thing is an absolute blast to pilot, and it's very simple. Right trigger accelerate, left trigger brake. The physics are nicely balanced, and it is quite forgiving to drive. When you are playing the game in co-op, you can decide what seat to actually sit in. You can be the pilot or, of course, the passenger in the recon turret. You can also load the skiff with weapons. I highly recommend loading the heavy weapons that you find. If you happen to pull up to a point of interest and need that firepower, you can always bring it with you from the skiff. It's actually pretty handy. Overall, the skiff is a win. Handles well, looks absolutely amazing. It's fun to drive. Driving the thing doesn't cause performance issues in these open world hub areas, as I mentioned earlier. It's a win. And I can only imagine that traversal like this will become commonplace in future Gears games, even if it isn't always with a skiff. With Gears getting these large hub worlds, I feel like Gears has evolved in the right way when it comes to traversal, when it comes to how you get to the narrative. There's something about having that choice to stop at something interesting you might find, whether it's some kind of old building that may house collectibles and resources, or one of those points of interest. It just elevates the entire experience to me, and you can always simply find your objective by holding that left bumper. So if you're still here, you know I really enjoyed the game. I feel like they have ramped everything up, including the narrative, the character building, the lore building of the game. It's all been ramped up. All of the details they talk about in the story, things you'd never heard of before. The character building is by far the best it's ever been. The combat is absolutely top notch. The technical aspect of this game is insane, being 60 FPS combined with these large hub worlds. I've not seen it on a console before. This kind of frame rate, this kind of open hub world, this kind of fidelity. Add to that all of these graphical effects that the game itself already has. The skiff is great, the combat's great, the executions are great, the acting is great, all of these great things in the single player, but there's more. There is an entire suite of multiplayer as well, including new and improved Horde mode. I played a little bit of the new Horde Escape mode. It's actually pretty fun. You've got all of those multiplayer modes and more that you've always loved in Gears of War. This is truly the full package, something you don't see a whole lot these days. Again, very impressive. You got this kind of single player, and you've got all of this multiplayer functionality combined with the co-op. It's definitely not common. So at the end of the day, the bottom line is all of this stuff is pretty much positive. I'm looking through my checklist here, and the only thing I have in the bad column at this point in time are those weird frame rate issues I had at one time but weren't there the next time I went to the same area. I cannot think of something else that I find bad about the game. I will say, however, the bot in the game could use some more compelling upgrades here and there, but other than that, depending on your taste in boss battles, which I will not show here, there is just nothing to really complain about. I have to commend the Coalition for pulling through, delivering on a massive game that has the biggest Gears story there is, with the most to do, combined with all of this multiplayer, combined with this insane technical accomplishment on the consoles, especially the Xbox One X. I have to give this game over a 9. In fact, I'll give it a 9.2 out of 10. It deserves every single bit of that. If you are a Gears fan, I do not think it's possible to dislike this game. If you are an action game fan, I do not think it's possible to dislike this game. And by the way, just so you know, a 9.2 out of 10 is very high from me. This is definitely a premium experience, a big blockbuster AAA game, the one Microsoft needed. This game has so much action, so many big boss moments and set pieces. It's just a quality title. And as I've been saying for months, the Coalition finally have the funds, the manpower, and the time to build games like this. If they did this much with just under 3 years, imagine what they can do with more. I guess what I'm trying to say here is that it's nice to see a game like this come out. And competition is still very much strong with Microsoft. This is the first of the new Xbox Game Studio releases, and man, is it a great game. But hey, that's my time, guys. Thank you so much for checking out this review. You guys absolutely rock. Again, I would appreciate a like, a share on this video. It really helps more than you know. Show this to your friends. Let them know how great this game is. Of course, if you're new, subscribe for more reviews like this, and of course that Xbox-centric content, mainly gaming news, things like that. Don't forget to let me know your thoughts down below, and be sure you are watching this at 4K 60 FPS if possible on your display. Once again, I'm Dealer. I'm out.